Hello and welcome to the MatchDay Review Podcast. This week is going to be a bit different because obviously the lack of football we've had due to the winter break. Me and Lewis are going to be doing something slightly different to what we usually do, in that we've taken a look at some of the teams across Europe and in the Premier League, and we're going to have a look and see what they could possibly need with a rebuild. We're going to start this week with Manchester City. They've had a bit of an indifferent season, haven't they, Lewis?
Yeah, it's been a difficult one for the team over at Eastlands. Yeah, it's unusual for them under Pep Guardiola. They're used to amassing 100 points and not having many challenges. So it's a bit of a turning point for Manchester City and a bit of a inflection point where they possibly need to make a decision on where they go now with that team.
Yeah, they've had 2 seasons of being pretty much untouchable. They had the 100 points 2 years ago, and then they had, I think it was 98 or something like that last season, and then this season it's got a bit of a feel of Pep's first season to it, in that he's got this style of play that he won't compromise, but he hasn't got the players to do it. Even though seems a bit weird, like something seems a bit off.
It seems as though he may have been overthinking it a little bit, personified by the second leg of the League Cup semi-final, where he was playing a 3-3-1-3 type of fluid formation, and it was all the City players were getting a little bit confused, and it played into United's hands, and United were able to marshal them pretty well and then win the game, which is not what you would have expected, but that's just the most recent example of City being a little bit more off the boil this season than you would have expected. You could put it down to the Pep Guardiola cycle, burning players out and burning Pep Guardiola out. But I think it's just more of, it's the end of that the cycle for this successful team, because you've seen it before with the team under Mancini, and it seems as though City go in 3-year cycles where they have to rebuild again.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but I would have thought, and you say it's the end of the cycle, but in my head, the cycle's only lasted 2 seasons, because in his first season in the Premier League, he quite clearly didn't have the players that he wanted to mount the charge that he felt City should be doing. Obviously, in the second season, he got a couple more players in, and they went on and got 100 points. And obviously, last season, very similar, but it seems very, very short shelf span for Guardiola's teams.
Guardiola's teams have always had a short again. We were so close last week, but we started off again losing the ability to speak, which is not good for a podcast. But Pep Guardiola's teams have a very shorter cycle than that of years past, of like a Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger. Even look at Real Madrid under Zidane; that's been a longer cycle when he was winning 3 Champions Leagues back to back. But I think it's because of the intensity that Pep Guardiola brings to a club. And I wouldn't say it's been 2 years this cycle. I'd say the first year was the start of the cycle, because he was bedding in players and weeding out the players that he didn't want from the previous regimes, under Pellegrini and Mancini.
Did they win anything in that first season? They didn't, did they? They finished third in the league. Obviously didn't win the Champions League. Did they win the FA Cup?
No, because we won the FA Cup that year, didn't we?
Pep's first
year?
We
didn't. No, we didn't. We won the League Cup because it was Jose's first year. So no.
I don't think he did win anything. No. Yeah. So obviously, that will obviously be the start of the season. Start of the build. But this season, as it stands at the minute, is looking like a. Yeah, I want to say write-off seems a bit harsh because they're already into one cup final, and they're still fighting for 2 others. But the league as a season is gone.
Yeah, the marker of a successful season in English football is always going to be determined by how you perform in the league. And as much as teams previous have gone, we've won the Champions League, it's a successful season, the biggest clubs in English football will always be determined how successful the season is by where they finish in the league and how they performed in the league. And given Liverpool have grabbed the baby and run away with the league, that's gone for all of the 19 teams. It's like you say, City now for this season are going to go and put all their eggs in the basket of winning the Champions League, because that's the holy grail for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City at this time, given all the investment that's been put in by the Abu Dhabi group.
Yeah, they're already into the League Cup final. So and going against Villa for that one, 22 points off the top of the Premier League. So
the FA Cup's a toss of a coin, depending on who you draw and what happens, because it's a one-off game. So you wouldn't put it past them City winning the FA Cup again and retaining it, but you could also see them getting beat and someone else winning it.
And then the Champions League is Real Madrid in the round of 16. So that one is incredibly tough to call. So you'd think a season of just winning the League Cup wouldn't be acceptable. I don't think the League Cup and the FA Cup would go down as a successful season for this Manchester City team either. So that means that the season at this point really does come down to how well they do in Europe. And I think anything other than winning it can be seen as a failure on their part.
Oh yeah, there's going to be serious questions asked at Manchester City come the summer, because this hasn't just happened overnight. You can go back to the lack of planning for losing the icon of Manchester City in the modern era, which is Vincent Kompany. The loss of that leadership, the loss of that mentality. He's the only player who's been constant since before the takeover of the Abu Dhabi group and Sheikh Mansour, and he's the only player that's grown with Manchester City as a club. So they lost more than just a quality central defender, Ed, when he departed in the summer for Anderlecht.
Yeah, it seems like a bit of a strange time letting him go, because whilst maybe on the pitch he wasn't offering quite what he used to, apart from obviously that goal against Leicester, it's off the pitch really where you see the difference, and it's highlighted even more now by injury to Laporte. So you think Kompany will probably be in that gap, but you see it more and more often. Teams just letting these experienced players go
without passing it on. Yeah, well, it's not even just replacing them; it's passing on that mentality and that leadership in a dressing room. Because you look at City's squad now and you go, there's not really like that stoic leader that you would need for a team to continually be successful and continually win Premier Leagues. Like, we'll always hark back to Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson, and there was always a conveyor belt of like rock solid leaders in that dressing room who were going to drag the team through difficult periods. And it seems as though City at this moment in time don't have that type of mentality to drag teams through. I know they've got quality leaders like Aguero, David Silva, Kevin De Bruyne, Fernandinho, but they never strike you as that, like I said, a stoic leader who'll be able to ride the storm in a dressing room and in a season for a club.
Yeah, they're the kind of players you just mentioned. They do more the talking with their feet rather than picking somebody up. And I know obviously leading by example on the pitch is the best kind of example you can set. But it's when you're in these difficult moments that possibly you need somebody to pick you up by the scruff of your neck and say, right, come on, we can get through this. And you look at, they let Vincent Kompany, and you said without grooming anybody in that role, you look through that squad now and you think, who could have possibly taken over that mantle after he went anyway? So maybe they did have to replace him in that sense.
Possibly with Harry Maguire, Eden, because he's, as he's shown at Manchester United, is growing into a leadership role this season. And maybe that's what City were looking at in the summer when they were interested in him. And fair play to City that they didn't want to match the 80 million United were willing to pay in the end.
I would say when Maguire first went to United, he possibly didn't look like that leader that City needed. But I think he, as you said, he's definitely grown into that captain's armband. But would he have got that armband if he was in the City back line?
No, but he would have been.
Who's the City captain at the minute?
Fernandinho.
Oh, and he's playing out of position as well. So
yeah, but I think, and you've also got to take everything in context with, in terms of saying this season's a write-off for Manchester City and all like the house has fallen down in the Premier League. You've got to also take the context of what Liverpool have done, because they've dropped 2 points all season, and it's not normal.
Yeah, it's because City's points tally in most other seasons is up there with title-winning form. It is, you've got to take into context they are still second in the league.
Yeah, so
it sounds bad that they're 22 points behind Liverpool, but Liverpool is setting just such a relentless pace at the top.
But we were watching a Premier League years yesterday, City's most memorable year as it would be in 2011-2012 when they first won the Premier League title, and you looked at it after 25 games and United and City were neck and neck on 54 points, and that was considered phenomenal going in the Premier League at that time. So to then you go, Liverpool are on 70 at the moment, or is it 71?
I think it's 70.
Yeah, they're on 70 at the moment. So even that going back then, which was considered tremendous form for both in the title race at that time, they'd still be 16 points behind where Liverpool are this season.
Yeah, and they've not been helped by injuries either. Obviously, injuries to Aymeric Laporte is the big one. He is their number one choice centre back. He's been out for the majority of the season, and he's just coming back now. But he's been a big miss, and you've got to play with Fernandinho at centre back, which not only he's a good player and he could fill in that role, but you're losing your best player in the midfield in that position. The role he plays in that position he can't do at centre back, which means you're missing a key component of the system. And Pep Guardiola's teams are all about that system.
It knocks the balance of the Manchester City team as a whole off when Fernandinho's not playing that anchor role, the sweeper role across central midfield. And I know Rodri stepped up this season and become one of the linchpins for Manchester City's team. He doesn't bring what Fernandinho does to that team, because there's kind of a reassurance of Manchester City teams the past 3 or 4 years that with Fernandinho in that role, you knew that there was someone who had a football brain in terms of defending and attacking in that midfield, and wouldn't easily do the dirty side of the game.
Yeah, I think if you look at City's business in recent history, buying Rodri it would almost be a Laporte case, in that Laporte was brought in, but he didn't play much in that first season. He was kind of groomed in a little bit. He plunked in and out here and there, and then kind of grew into that role again last season. I think if you look at Rodri, it was possibly a similar kind of thing for that, was that he would come in, he's already a quality player, but he would learn the Fernandinho role under Fernandinho for a year, and then Fernandinho would step aside next year, so to speak, and Rodri would come in accustomed to the Premier League and be the number one choice, and he would then rotate with Fernandinho coming in on the occasional game. But with the injury to Laporte, they haven't had a chance to do that.
Yeah, so Rodri's been thrown in at the deep end, feet to the fire type.
Yeah, he's
not
learning
the
Guardiola system and the league at the same time, which can be a really difficult thing to do.
But you've got to give City on the recruitment side of it for last summer's transfer window with Rodri that they knew who they were going to get. They'd identified where the progression and was needed in terms of like Fernandinho was aging. They needed to bring someone in who would replace him. City's recruitment and identifying of the talent they require is second to none in world football, Aidan.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the speed they got that Rodri deal over the line, like you knew it was happening from the moment the transfer window opened. That Rodri was going to Manchester City, and it was only a matter of days before it happened. I think Atletico took his number off him and gave it to somebody else. I think it was that Llorente from
Real Madrid,
before he'd even been sold. So there was no messing about. They knew who they wanted, and they went and got him. But did they? So they've identified him, but obviously they haven't identified enough players in that window to go and fix the problems that were coming over the horizon, so to speak.
Possibly they didn't envisage those problems coming as quick as they done. We always use the analogy of the chickens coming over the hill, and that maybe they didn't think the chickens were as fast as they have been this season, and the problems have appeared before City envisaged they were going to happen. But one of the good things you can lay at City's recruitment is they don't seem to waste a lot of money or be linked with every player across Europe like certain other Premier League clubs are, and they always seem as though they've got a plan. There's no panic. There's no, what's available. It's always, what do we need? Like the City board are going, what do we need? What does the manager require? There's always seems to be that constant plan and efficiency in recruitment in the transfer market for City.
Yeah, you saw it like the year before Pep Guardiola came in. They were buying players for Pellegrini for Pep Guardiola. It was announced in January that while Pellegrini was still in the seat, that Pep was leaving Bayern and was coming to Manchester City. And you could see the building blocks being put in place for him, not only on the pitch but behind the scenes as well.
Yeah, because he bought Kevin De Bruyne under Pellegrini. It was Kevin De Bruyne signing that kind of tipped you off that Pep Guardiola was building that team from afar.
And not only that, but behind the scenes as well, they had structured Manchester City so that when Guardiola came in,
he was working with his boys.
Yeah, just like at Bayern Munich, he didn't have to concentrate so much as on the off the field part of football. He could just get on with coaching that team and making it in his mould the way he wanted it to. And obviously it took a year and he needed to get some more players in, but it worked for them. They're the first Premier League team in history to get 100 points, and then they very nearly did it again the season afterwards. So,
but you can also look at what City's hierarchy did pre-Guardiola, because they put in place the system that Pep Guardiola thrived in at Barcelona with Tiki Bergestein, Jonathan Soriano. Yeah, come on. I'll try again. Tiki Bergestein, are we there?
I don't know. I'm saying almost, but I don't know how to pronounce it either. Possibly could have practiced some pronunciation beforehand. I do apologise to anybody whose name is pronounced just horrifically wrong.
Pulling me up on pronunciation and pulls the perler out. Oh, I don't know. But like going back to what we were saying, City were building the structure in terms of the football side of the club off the pitch, and no one has done it better in the past 10 years than Manchester City. And I think that helped Pep Guardiola hit the ground running and get to the 100-point season. And you've got to give the commendable, you've got to acknowledge how commendable what City did was. And I think looking forward now, you would expect City to be able to rebuild this club again.
Yeah, you would think that behind the scenes they're already looking at where this team is going. So they just build Manchester City 2.0, so to speak, under Guardiola. You've got players like David Silva retiring. You would imagine that they knew this. Well, he's not retiring; he's just leaving. I think his time is up. You'd imagine they've been eyeing replacements for him. Phil Foden would be the obvious one there, but possibly they're looking in the market as well.
Definitely City are gonna go in the market, Adam, because you can see someone like Ilkay Gundogan also, possibly not this summer, but the summer after, is looking at possibly a return to German football. So there's always going to be wheels in motion with City in terms of bringing players in the transfer market. But like we said, just to finish off in terms of this season before we look at how City are going to move forward, I think it all rests on the Champions League round of 16 and such a massive tie against Real Madrid, because we know all the cards are stacked against English teams when they play Real Madrid in the Champions League. Not questioning UEFA's motives, Aidan, but I don't know about you.
I don't think it's just English teams that the odds are stacked against them at the Bird of Bath, and being honest.
Yeah, what is it? Sergio Ramos refereeing each last 16 Champions League tie he's played in the past 10 years.
He's got an earpiece under that captain's armband straight to the VAR.
Yeah. Well, no, I see City having a fighting chance in the Bernabeu, but Real Madrid are the Champions League football team. And when the lights are on the biggest stage, there's no one better at getting a result than Real Madrid.
Yeah, and they seem to have found their feet under Zidane as well in this second time around. They might not have started. They might be playing brilliant football, but they just look like they know how to win games again.
Yeah, and it seems as though that Real Madrid team could be the kryptonite for Manchester City at this moment in time, because they're set up to exploit the defensive weaknesses of City in terms of Benzema as a commanding centre forward. He's going to command that central area, and he's always going to add that goal threat. He's more physically powerful than Otamendi and Fernandinho. I don't know if Laporte will be back at that time, but he's not going to be 100% up to speed. You've got the speed coming on the flanks of Rodrigo, Vinicius. You've got Gareth Bale, and they're also very, very well set up in central midfield to win a midfield battle. Not writing City off, because they've got.
It'd be a very interesting game. Obviously, it's very difficult to predict any kind of Champions League game, but yeah, I think if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would probably put some money on Madrid over City as it stands.
You said going into it, yeah. Going into it, you'd say Real Madrid are the slight favourites at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think given what's happening to City in the league at the minute, I think if you're looking at it, yeah, Madrid would probably be the favourites. But then, when are Madrid not the favourites for a European tie?
Yeah, true. Madrid are always going to be in front, but just looking on the flip side of that, Pep Guardiola is a Barcelona native. is one of the icons of that football club. You'd love nothing more to go and dump Real Madrid out in the last 16 and win at the Bernabeu.
Could that not be his downfall, though? We spoke about it. I know we spoke about it earlier on. He's overthinking of things. He likes to overthink things on the big occasion, and he has struggled in the Champions League before.
Yeah, and it's prime overthinking territory because of the emotion that's going to be involved in the game for him returning to the Spanish capital.
Exactly. But as we were talking about earlier about Pep and this whole cycle of rebuilding the team, City have always got the wheels in motion and they know what's happening and they're always one step ahead, so to speak. There's been some reports that Pep could possibly be off at the end of the season, possibly suffering from burnout. You would imagine that City would be in the know of where his head's at if they know he's going to go, if they know he's staying.
Yeah, because he's never, if you look at it from his Barcelona time, then at Munich, he's never rebuilt a team in the mould of what an Arsene Wenger did, or just keeping it to the Premier League, or Sir Alex Ferguson did. There's never been that another squad cycle in Pep Guardiola's career. There's been Barcelona, he had Lionel Messi, David Villa, Iniesta, Xavi, won the Champions League in 2011, left, had a sabbatical, and then returned to Bayern Munich into the season 2013-14. Did what he did at Bayern Munich, won so many league titles there, built that successful team, even though it was on the back of winning the Champions League under Jupp Heynckes. That was a good pronunciation, Eden.
That was correct, yeah.
Yeah, and then he's built that team, went successful with that one. Granted, they didn't get over the line in the Champions League. He's come to City, built this team, had a successful cycle. So there is the chance that he is suffering from burnout through intensity of his coaching methods and also how much work he puts in terms of managing the team. So you could see him leaving. I don't expect it happening, but it's not like a ludicrous statement, Eden.
Yeah, and you've got to think that if he does leave, then the entire plan changes because this Manchester City team is very much built in his image. And could somebody else come in and play the same football? Yeah,
because you could imagine like the names that have been touted about. Like we were saying today, there's not a lot of world class available Premier League managers that could come to the Premier League from across Europe or in the Premier League at the moment.
Yeah, the number one manager that screams out would be Pochettino. He could possibly play a similar style of football. It wouldn't be the same, but it could be similar.
He could utilise those players in his preferred formation, his preferred way of playing football. But then you would pose the question, would he need a more commanding number 9 in the mould of Harry Kane? And could Aguero or Jesus provide that role in a Pochettino team?
Yeah, I think he'd probably be the one that's most likely to get a tune out of those players. And the other manager that came across my mind, it was a bit of a wild card, would be Diego Simeone, if his time looks like it might be coming to an end at Atletico as well. But then that would completely change that team again, because that team is not built in a Simeone mould at all.
No, it's not. You wouldn't strike that City team as being hyper aggressive, hyper powerful, always like high running, not high intensity in terms of press, but high intensity in terms of the work rate that the midfield, the defence, and the centre forwards get through in a game. It's like you're taking a artisan type football team that Manchester City are at the moment and making it into more of a powerhouse football team, and that'd take a lot of work, that, Aidan, in my eyes.
Yeah, it's a complete change of tact. On the playing side of it, though, we've come up with a list of certain players that we think potential for the Axe this summer.
Yeah, I think we're going on this on the proviso that Pep Guardiola is going to stay and get this City team firing again with a few additions. Yeah, so this is all on the assumption that he's still there and that they're rebuilding this team to suit his style of play and kind of continuation of what's already there at City. In the back line, we think John Stones is pretty much nailed on to go. And then there's a question mark next to his partner of Otamendi as well, especially seeing as both of them at some point in the season, even if fit, have been dropped for midfielders.
You've seen Rodri play in the back line. You've seen Fernandinho play there week in, week out. I think John Stones is more at risk because he seems to be the one that's least favoured by Guardiola. You see Otamendi every now and again partner Fernandinho.
Yeah, you've got John Stones only appeared in 11 Premier League games this year, and Otamendi's appeared in 16. So you could have imagined if Aymeric Laporte hadn't had a serious injury, it would have been Otamendi who would have been partnering him most of the time.
Yeah. In the right back position, a new signing, João Cancelo, he's very much unfavoured by Guardiola, which is a strange one because he was supposed to be one of the best current right backs in Europe towards the end of last season. He was considered like say one of the ones who were going to break into the elite of the fullbacks in European football. He was starting a lot in that Juventus side at the tail end of the season, and then once Maurizio Sarri got the job at Juventus, it was Cancelo's on his way out, and it was very swift that he was on his way out to City. Swap deal for Danilo, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they paid 60 million. The transfer fee was adjudged to be valued at 60 million, 30 for Danilo and 30 in cash. So it's not exactly a cheap outlay for Manchester City to throw on the scrap heap after just one season. But if Pep Guardiola's one thing, he's ruthless, and he isn't going to stand for mediocre football.
Yeah, you talk about the ruthlessness. We expect them to probably be needing to get a backup goalkeeper with Claudio Bravo not really cutting the grade at Manchester City. You saw it in his first season. He came in, the first thing he did was get rid of Joe Hart, and then as soon as he realised that Bravo wasn't good enough the next season later, he got rid of him as well, and replaced him with Ederson. So he's not afraid to just chop and change and get rid of you if you're surplus to requirements. No.
So you're telling me, Eden, your backup goalkeeper, when you need him to come in and do a job, has 9 shots on goal and concedes 9. Yeah, from those 9 shots.
It's some awful statistics. I think he went through a phase. Was it last season before? He must have been.
It was a season before Ederson.
Every first shot on target in a game went past him.
Yeah,
that's for a goalkeeper at that level, or any level. That's awful.
Possibly, but it possibly doesn't give you a true reflection of those types of shots. Granted, he's made a few rickets in his time at City. The most memorable one was the Zlatan goal in the Manchester derby a few years ago.
And he shouldn't have given away a penalty in that game as well.
Yeah, but you can at least come into 36, a backup goalkeeper. Maybe he wants to play his final years as a professional footballer out as a first choice in another team across Europe, possibly Seville, someone on the level of Sevilla, or Borussia Mönchengladbach, Monaco, maybe even if Subasic moves on from Monaco.
Like I say, Subasic and putting Claudio Bravo in that position would be a bit of a change of position for him. He has to play out from the back. I would put him in defence instead. Moving further up,
definitely plays for Union Berlin and had the good reception in front of the yellow wall.
The
Westfalenstadion against Dortmund on his return. But going across to other players who I believe City could be looking to be on the move is look at the defence. You got Benjamin Mendy, only played 11 times this year.
Is that because of his injuries though? I know that when he first signed, I think he was in Guardiola's good books. I think maybe now he's just a constant liability with injuries and likes to see himself a bit of a social media star.
Yeah, social media idiocy that goes on. There was a story this week about when he was pictured in Hong Kong, when he should have been at training or in rehab during an injury. We photoshopped it. My team photoshopped it with the words, and I was trying to wind Guardiola up. That doesn't set a good precedent for a manager. That doesn't take much crap.
No, that's one surefire way to get yourself removed from the team on a pretty permanent basis. And even in a position at left back where they've got rid of Angelino in January already.
Mexican cartel boy.
So they're even in a position they're not exactly stacked in for players that he wouldn't be afraid of getting rid of.
Got Zinchenko.
He's out for the next game as well, isn't he, with his red card against Tottenham?
Yeah. He's developed the Manchester City fullback curse of becoming a bit of a liability at the moment as well. When he first started off, City won every game that he played in, and it seems as though the wheels have fell off for him since Ukraine made it to the Euros.
If you saw that video, maybe he hasn't stopped partying yet.
Yeah, but just an interesting thing I picked up on just is Zinchenko's played 11 Premier League games this season, and so has Mendy. So maybe Guardiola isn't happy with both of them, and that's where he'll look to bring in a frontline fullback.
Yeah, I know he's got this rotation policy, but trying to guess that City back line is a bit of a lottery. You know, you've got Zinchenko, Mendy, Angelino was in there for a couple of games at the start of the season. He didn't do so well either. So left back looks like one of the positions where you'd expect someone to be coming in.
Yeah, and just moving further forward, City are stacked. Like we said, in midfield, you've got Fernandinho, Rodri, Gundogan to play that defensive-minded role. And then looking at the more attacking roles, you know, you've got your De Bruyne's, the grooming Phil Foden to take over David Silva's position. And you've got Bernardo Silva, who's arguably been pound for pound the best player in the Premier League over the past 2 years.
Yeah, but as we all know, David Silva's time at City is coming to an end at the end of the season. He's moving on to pastures new, so they could possibly look at bringing somebody in that position.
Just seems a very thin... as ridiculous as it sounds, Aidan, this Manchester City team seems very thin in terms of numbers and different options.
I think what you could say is all the cogs are in the right place to make the wheels go round. It's a very finely tuned machine in that everybody knows what they're doing, when they're doing it, and where they're doing it.
Possibly, but when it starts misfiring, is that where you look to something to change it up? And they're missing that possible, don't like to use it, but plan B type of ingredient into that squad.
Possibly. Guardiola is very stubborn with the way he plays. He will not change his style of football for anybody or anything.
No,
so
which is commendable and understandable why this team and squad is composed as it is.
Yeah, but it could also be seen as a weakness.
Yeah, single-mindedness.
Possibly maybe this season teams have found them out as well. Because we've seen a lot of performances and they've had a lot of problems defensively, but a lot of teams have certainly come closer than they have done in the past.
They've kind of sat back and soaked up what City have been willing to give them in terms of attacking, and then sprung on the break. You saw it against Tottenham on Sunday. Tottenham just sat back, played 4-4-2. As soon as he got the ball, straight up to Son and Moura and Bergwijn, and they were right at the heart of the City defence.
Yeah.
But the other players, just to finish off, who we see might be on the way out of the Etihad, is Leroy Sané. It's clear he's going to return to Bayern Munich in Germany in the summer. We know Munich are still beating that drum, keeping it alive, that they still see Sané as the poster boy of Bayern Munich in the years to come.
Yeah, that replacement for Frank Ribery and Ian Robin, they had a very public pursuit of him in the summer.
Just
it was
unfortunate he got the injury when he did, because you know full well Bayern were going to come after the Premier League transfer window was closed. They were going to come and buy him before the end of August.
Which, by the way, Premier League voters have literally just voted to extend the deadline to September 1st to realign itself with Europe.
So you're telling me, Aaron, that every football fan in England who was scratching their head going, well, that clearly puts every team at a disadvantage. It's took them a year to figure out, oh yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot there. Because the only team, lo and behold, that it suited was a team that was already built, and that was Liverpool Football Club. But
another discussion for another day, that one, I think.
Yeah. Anyway, we're back into a sense of non-stupidity in terms of handicapping Premier League football clubs. So that's only better for both the spectacle of the transfer window and also for English teams who are looking to buy players and not get shafted in terms of paying excessive fees.
Yeah, it just makes sense. It's a no-brainer on everybody's part.
And just to finish off, Aidan, I've got a sneaky feeling Sergio Aguero might might leave City in the summer.
I could see it happening. I could understand why it might happen, and it certainly will happen. I think in the next 2 seasons. I think he might stay this summer, simply because he's only 20 odd goals away from Rooney, in second place for that top scorers list. He won't be. He's not catching Alan Shearer, so there won't be any hanging around to try and catch that. But
yeah, because Aguero's on 180 at the moment and Shearer's on 260.
So he might hang around just long enough to pip second place off Rooney. But that would be a huge loss for them. You know, their top goal scorer, their historical top goal scorer.
Yeah, he's the talisman of Manchester City.
But the question is, obviously, we've been through who could be leaving. It's a case of who do you get in to replace these players?
And it's a harder task than we initially thought.
Yeah, we came across a couple of problems. Backup goalkeeper being the difficult one.
Yeah, it's like when we said we were going to do this for a lot of clubs across Europe, who they're going to buy, and it's not just a case of we say play FIFA Ultimate Team, he's had a good week, we'll buy him. Football clubs don't work like that, so we took a more measured and actual, don't want to use the word analytic approach, but a more measured and football thinking approach other than who's the player at the moment. And there's not that many available world-class players that teams could go and buy who are willing to come to England. That's what we found anyway.
Yeah, and we found that obviously we're going to do more of these for other teams. You might find certain players overlapping in certain positions, which I suppose makes it interesting for actual clubs in trying to get these players. Yeah,
because it's not going to be... Football doesn't work like, one team is interested in one player, or that player's definitely going to that team. It's a free open market, and so you're going to have 4 or 5 teams who are vying for a player, such as, name that comes to the top of their head is Kai Havertz, the 20-year-old German sensation for Bayer Leverkusen. I know Real Madrid are sniffing around Paris Saint-Germain. It's inevitable.
Live with them as well.
Yeah, inevitable. Manchester United, Juventus and Inter Milan will get linked with him before the summer. So there's always going to be 4 or 5 teams in across European football who are looking at these players coming up and who's available, because each team is trying to build a squad that's more successful.
Yeah, in the right proposition, you had an interesting idea, didn't you? To not replace Kyle Walker, but certainly study underneath him for a season and then possibly replace him in the following
Sign
season.
a younger player from Europe who could learn under Kyle Walker, be blooded into the Premier League and not be asked to be 100% 38 games a season. And I came up with gonna get myself comfy there, Eden. No, I came up with Serginho Dost from Ajax, the young right back of his USA international.
He's attacking right back, right?
Yeah, he's attacking right back. Got a good final ball on him. Very good defensively. He's never exposed in terms of positioning in that Ajax team. Granted, I know he's only playing in Dutch football at the moment, but he seems the type of player that City should look to add as a backup right back if they're going to move on from Cancelo.
Yeah, I know you can never be too sure when buying from the Dutch league. Just look at De Ligt at Juventus. He's not set the world on fire over there in Serie A. But if they wanted to look a bit more closer to home, you could have a look at Max Aarons at Norwich. Although he's been linked with a fair few clubs already.
He provides that drive, that intensity, willingness to get forward, has a good final delivery on him, and is also very well versed in defending.
Yeah, I think he was linked with. He was Man United's second choice behind Wan-Bissaka in the summer. He was linked with Arsenal and Tottenham in January. He's obviously got a year's experience in the Premier League already. Very young as well. But I had a sort of a wild card thought. I don't think this would have come up had he not moved, which is also consequently the reason I don't think it would happen, was Kieran Trippier at Atletico Madrid, because
he started off at City.
Yeah, he started off at City.
As a youngster.
It would be a reunion in that sense. And I think if you see him he seems to be enjoying life in Spain, which is why I don't think it could happen. But He's become more...
No, I don't see it. Yeah, I could see it happening if Pep Guardiola moved on and they brought in Simeone, because he's a Simeone caliber player in terms of his aggression, willingness to work for the team. Also, he's able to pass the ball into midfield, and there's a wicked delivery on him.
Yeah, I think under Simeone in Spain, I think he's become more defensively aware, which is understandable playing in that kind of Atletico team. But like you said, going forward, he's got an excellent ball, and we've seen it all for England. And he can even take set pieces. You know, that goal against Croatia, where take us back to that moment, please.
Take us back to that moment, Ed, when this was before Perisic grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck, along with Luka Modric in the semi-final of the World Cup, and all of England believed that football was coming on.
45 minutes, and that it never got better than that split second when that free kick went in.
No, well, you didn't see it, did you? Because we was at the fan park in Manchester,
in the way.
And granted, some American woman decided to stand up on chairs so that we couldn't see the actual screen.
Didn't see the goal. I just saw beer go up in the air.
Yeah, but no, it was a great moment for England and a great moment for Trippier in the summer.
Yeah,
it was just unfortunate that Gareth Southgate didn't twig what we twigged in the second half when we moved to watch it on a TV. Was that Croatia had tactically changed and moved Luka Modric to the right midfield spot, and England didn't adapt to nullify Modric in that position, and the rest is history, they say.
Yeah, and let me tell you, at £5 a pint, I held on to mine.
Not throwing it up in the air. Granted, if we'd have scored a second goal, that American woman was getting drenched.
Yeah, she was... bless her, she didn't quite realise she was in the way of everybody.
Yeah, and you could see all the lads who were around us who were just stacking up
pints waiting.
Like, she has got to get absolutely pelted.
That's what you get for standing in the way of the football World Cup semi-final for England. They don't come around very often, and you've decided to get in the way.
Yeah. It was all in good humour, and nothing
malicious,
personal in that.
No.
But anyway, moving on. City are in desperate need of a left back.
Yes.
And
I think,
as we've said before, Eden, there is a lack of world class left backs all across Europe.
Yeah, and the person we came up with, you'll probably hear quite a lot of, especially into the Premier League clubs who could do with a left back. It's Ben Chilwell. I think at the minute you would say he probably is England's number one left back. Probably be number one choice going into the Euros. He's had a bit of a wobble at Leicester in the last couple of weeks. He was left out of at the team a couple of weeks ago by Brendan Rodgers.
I think his head was turned, Eden. That final week of the January transfer window when he was dropped at Burnley by Brendan Rodgers, and there was a bit of
Yeah, I read that was about
a bit of commotion about that.
Was out and he was late for training.
He was late for training twice in 1 week, but I think there was possibly either City or Chelsea have come in for him and said, "We're going to come in the summer for you, Chilwell," and his head's been turned. And Brendan Rodgers, being the good man manager that he is, has seen that and gone, "Nah, mate, your head's being screwed on for the rest of this season because Leicester City needs to get in the Champions League."
Yeah, and he came back into the team against Chelsea at the weekend, and he actually scored a goal as well.
Yeah, he seems to be back on form since he's returned to the Leicester starting 11. But one of the... So, we've done our research, got a few players for each position. The one that stood out to me was Jose Gaya, the Valencia left back, current Spain number one at the left back position, and that's a Pep Guardiola signing in my eyes. Happy to receive the ball under pressure, willing to receive the ball and play out from the back from the goalkeeper in deep positions, and he's also got the high energy to marshal the flanks up and down.
Yeah, defensively, I think Valencia are doing quite good in the league this season. They're fifth in La Liga. They're pushing for a Champions League space themselves, only because he had 29 goals so far. So you're thinking of defensive aspect as well. He would suit that team. He likes to go forward as most modern fullbacks do. So
it's just how good he is on the ball, and playing in a system that plays out from the back at Valencia. That seems as if Chilwell doesn't sign for City, he goes to Chelsea or Liverpool, and like Liverpool, they got Robertson, but you know what I mean. If he doesn't end up signing for City, you could see City turn into a Jose
Someone
Gaya
like
who's a Spanish international in a Pep Guardiola mould of the type of player he likes. So there is options for City in the fullback positions. We're not painting a gloomy picture that there's no fullbacks in world football. But given that a lot of teams need improvement in the fullback position across Europe, there's going to be a lot of clubs vying for the signatures of these players.
Yeah, I think Chilwell will be the number one choice, but I think he'll be the number one choice for Chelsea as well. So I think it'll be a battle of who gets him if, of course, he leaves. So moving on to the centre-back position, they're in desperate need of a centre-back, as we've discussed.
As are a lot of teams in world football, Eden, but the one that stands out to me is Milan Skriniar at Inter Milan.
Yeah, he was linked with Man United a couple of years ago. Obviously, he's a stalwart in that Inter Milan defence at the minute, who are going for the league.
Alongside Stefan de Vrij. Yeah, because they're going very well in Serie A this year under Conte. He's got Martial very well. They're not conceding many goals. Is
the sort of defender you see playing out from the back? Because obviously that's very key for Guardiola team. That's why he brought in John Stones, and that's why he possibly doesn't fancy Otamendi.
Possibly, and Skriniar, from what I've seen of him, he's capable of doing that. But I think, like I say, in City are missing that stoic, aggressive leader in the back line, and Skriniar fits that bill. He's tall, good in the air, willing to put his foot in, willing to put his head in where it hurts, challenging on crosses, closing people down. That seems the type of player that City are missing, Eden, at the back. And it's just too it's just too obvious, Eden. And we've had the report this morning from Corriere dello Sport in Italy saying that Inter Milan would look to include João Cancelo as part of that deal if it was to happen in the summer.
Yeah, that was correct this morning that City were prepared to do that, which again lends into the fact that we think João Cancelo is, despite being recently bought for a hefty fee,
his days are numbered.
Out of favour at the Etihad, yeah.
But I think City need two centre backs though, Eden. Crying out for two centre backs.
I think they need more than two.
Well, they got Laporte. They got Aymeric Laporte. They believe in the young Spanish lad Eric Garcia, who's coming up through the youth academy, and I would imagine Otamendi would stay as a backup, but I think Ruben Diaz, the highly rated central defender from Benfica, I think he'd be a massive upgrade for Manchester City in the back line.
Well, if that was happening, because we'll see a lot of press being pushed from Portugal, as is the usual way that Portuguese players end up coming from Portugal. And then a bit of a wild card option that you came up with as well was Connor Cody from Wolves.
Yeah, just to go back to the Diaz one before we touch on Connor Cody, is he's signed a new contract with a €55 million release clause, and the fact that how much that's been pushed, the release clause in the Portuguese media, just dots the I's and crosses the T's in the procession of him moving on from Benfica.
Yeah, it can't be coincidence that this release clause has been in there. It's almost like, come and get me, please, so to speak.
Yeah. But going on to Connor Cody, I think he's arguably the top five best centre-backs in the Premier League, always organising that Wolves back three, always providing that leadership that City are lacking, and clearly is the foundation of most of the success of that Wolves team.
Yeah, obviously you look at him and you think he's got Premier League experience. If that Wolves team plays a similar-ish style playing out from the back to this City team, obviously it's not exactly the same, but he could slot into that team and do it. Possibly he wouldn't, maybe not be the number one choice at the back if you got someone like a Skriniar or Ruben Diaz, but he could easily step in and be that rotation centre back that Guardiola likes so much.
Yeah, and he does one thing well that a lot of defenders struggle with in the Premier League, and that's defend properly. As we said on the previous podcast, they'll all start defending.
To our last podcast.
Yeah. So no, he's Connor Cody in my eyes is primed for a move to one of the top 6 clubs in the Premier League, and especially given the fact City need a centre-back, Chelsea need a centre-back, Arsenal need 4 centre-backs, and United need a centre-back. You could see him moving to one of those clubs. I just think he'd suit City in terms of bringing leadership, bringing stability, and bringing an organisational aspect to the back line that's severely lacking this year. Granted, when you got Otamendi, that guy does do whatever he wants anyway.
Yeah, I think that Conor Cody one might rely on Wolves' Champions League qualification, because obviously they're in the hat at the minute to qualify for it. And the fight for that fourth spot is so tight, and the form is so indifferent for all those teams. It could be a case of, if they get in, he might want to stay and have a crack at it with Wolves.
Yeah, there's a lot of players in that Wolves team. You could imagine if they finish 4th or win the Europa League, then they will stay with Wolves to finish off the project there. Whereas if they finish 5th, you see that Wolves team breaking up.
Yeah, I say when we do this with other teams, I can guarantee you Conor Cody isn't the only Wolves player that's going to pop up.
No.
Moving slightly further forward, they're into midfield. They seem to be okay in the centre midfield department. Nobody said, Rodri was probably brought in to be groomed under Fernandinho, and it hasn't quite gone to plan this season because of the injuries. But
I could see him bringing one in, Eden, but not because you've got Phil Foden, who's a youngster. I can imagine they've got other players in that City academy who they believe in a lot, who they believe could progress into a starting role in the first team. Thiago Alcantara at Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich are going to change manager at the end of the season. The likes of Thomas Muller are going to leave. There's going to be a massive overhaul in the Munich squad, and it just seems as though everything's lining up for Thiago to move on. And I could see Pep Guardiola adding him to that City team. There's a bit of experience and a bit of something different in midfield.
Bit of familiarity as well. I think he's played under. Was he there? He must have been under Guardiola at some point, playing for Barcelona and Bayern Munich.
He graduated through La Masia at the tail end of Pep Guardiola's run as Barcelona manager, and then he definitely was there when Guardiola was there.
Because at Bayern Munich.
Yeah, because the David Moyes and Edward Woodward stories at United, that he was nailed on to sign for United at that time as Guardiola joined Bayern Munich, but Thiago joined Bayern Munich instead of United.
Guardiola gave him his breakthrough in the first team at Barcelona and then brought him again at Bayern Munich. So that points towards it, the potential of it happening again. It might be one of those players that he follows around Europe. Thiago's spoken about his admiration for Pep Guardiola before as well. And he's just that sort of player that fits into that midfield. He's very good on the ball. He can pick a pass. He's got quick, tidy feet. A lot of energy in midfield, and obviously having played for Pep and been bought by Pep before, you just think that it's that kind of energy that he likes in midfield.
Yeah, you can see, and it's that winning experience there, and you always want to be continually adding that winning mentality into a football club that's always striving to have continual success.
On the wings, we think obviously with Leroy Sané going as well. The obvious link, I think, is
there's a return for Jadon Sancho.
As a kid, went to Borussia Dortmund, has become one of the most touted young talents in world football, and has since been linked with a move back to the Premier League for the last year and a bit now. Pick a team in the top 6. He's been linked to them at some point.
So you tell me he's been linked to Man United, and I don't believe that.
Yeah, you pick a team, and he's been linked to Man United, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Liverpool, Chelsea. Obviously, a return to Manchester City.
One of the questions I had, I know Sancho's young, but he's an established world star, and he's established in that Dortmund team as one of the forefront attacking players. Would City be looking to go a little bit younger and a little bit less established in terms of adding a winger? Because I was thinking of Ferran Torres, the 19-year-old starlet that's at Valencia at the moment.
I don't know. I would think that if you're looking at a right winger, there are probably not too many better than Jadon Sancho at the minute. Obviously, he's got history with City. He's English for starters, which is always attracts players back to the Premier League. He himself is only 19 years old. And possibly if a team like City might be looking for, Jadon Sancho isn't the finished article, but he is already, as you can see, a phenomenal player, and the only teenager in the Bundesliga to ever score 25 goals as well.
Wow, didn't know that started, and that's takes some going in that league.
I mean, the way Erling Haaland's going, he might have broken that record by the end of the week. So,
what is it? He's on the verge of getting dropped because he's a goal every 16 minutes now instead of every 12.
I know, awful form, absolutely awful. I think Haaland's got until the end of March before he turns 20.
Yeah.
So
he'll probably
pick up the pace a bit.
He'll probably score 30 by then.
He's got to pick up the pace.
But yeah, just to finish off, like we said, we mentioned there's a possibility that Sergio Aguero moves on from Manchester City at the end of the season. How slight that possibility is up for debate. But where do you see City moving in terms of adding a frontline centre forward? Because there's not many in Europe.
It's a difficult one. You could look at Timo Werner. Obviously, he's been touted to move away from Leipzig, not Salzburg, for a while now. My first thought when it comes to Werner is Bayern Munich. He's in the German league. He is German. His contract's running down. I don't know if did he sign a new contract?
He signed a new contract with Leipzig, but it's got a 36 million euro release clause in it for certain teams.
So he's not moving to Bayern Munich for free, but he might move there on the cheap. So it won't be an exact carbon copy of Lewandowski. But other than that, the one that came to mind for me was like an Argentinian swap was Mario Icardi. I know he's at PSG at the minute. He's doing quite well over there actually, but he's only on loan, so he'll be going back to Inter Milan at the end of the season.
And that's not going to happen given he's not going to stay at Inter very long, given the previous animosity that's between the club and Icardi, and also because they got Lukaku now. Yeah,
so it could be, he will leave Inter Milan when he goes back, and this could be good news for Inter Milan, his form at PSG, because they might now get a bit more money for him, and it could spark a bidding war between PSG, who might want to keep him given the form he's shown,
Barcelona
and they're leaving Cavani.
Yeah, Barcelona are in the market for a number 9.
Yeah.
So, like you said, there's always teams who are looking for world-class goal scorers, and Icardi is definitely in that bracket.
And Inter Milan obviously have got another Argentinian as well in Lautaro Martinez. He could easily be the subject of many transfer rumors in the summer as well.
Yeah.
So
I kind of think he's going to be the number 9 for Barcelona next year, Eden.
But yeah, I think that was the one that was touted in January as well. It was never going to happen, obviously, because of where he's at. But given Luis Suarez's injury, I think that was the one that everyone was looking towards, and thinking that's a ready-made replacement for him.
Yeah, but for City, it's a difficult one because you've got Gabriel Jesus, who's clearly banging in the goals. He's 9 in 16.
Yeah, so do you want someone to be his understudy, so to speak? He spent a long time being Aguero's understudy. And if you look at his numbers for being a second-choice striker, they're absolutely phenomenal. So he could make up that step to be the number 1 choice. So maybe they go for somebody younger and just continue almost like a conveyor belt of 2-striker system.
Yeah, possibly Moussa Dembele. I know he's linked to every club that has a functioning transfer budget in Europe. But yeah, Moussa Dembele is like possibly a wild card one. It looks as though he's favourite to go and join Chelsea in the summer. But just a correction on the Gabriel Jesus one, it's 9 in 21 in the Premier League this year.
What did you say first time round?
9 in 16. It's Aguero who's 16 and 19. That's where I've got mistaken.
That'd be good. 9 and 16 for a backup striker.
But no, he's played more games given Aguero's injury, but that's some return from Aguero. 16 goals in 19 games in the Premier League.
You think both of them are putting up spectacular numbers, so losing any one of them, I think, would be...
Yeah, it's
you're going to take some replacing.
it's a bit of a stretch to see City like willingly letting Aguero leave in the summer, given he's still got a year left on his deal.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think he'll go this summer, but next summer definitely there is a chance that he might do. And with only two recognised strikers in the current squad, you think they'd be looking for somebody, if not to buy now, but definitely identifying somebody this summer to go and get next summer.
Oh yeah, they'll be doing the homework and the recruitment side of it, scouting, and know exactly who's on the list, whether that be the A target, the B target, the C target, in terms of where they see themselves moving for players, not in this upcoming transfer window, but the transfer windows after that.
Yeah. Right, so we've worked our way up the pitch. We've gone from goalkeeper to striker. We've picked the players we think could possibly end up leaving and indeed joining Manchester City. And just to finish off, we didn't do it on Sunday's podcast for whatever, I can't remember why we didn't do it. It must have just slipped our mind. But we've got our Premier League all-time Hall of Fame picks to do before we go.
Yeah, we did it on Sunday. We didn't do it on Tuesday. It's because we said we were doing it once a week.
Why we didn't do it then.
Yep. Nah, yeah. It's so I'm interested to see your second,
fourth. Yeah,
week's pick is it, and fourth pick.
Just call it second pick. My second pick is, I think he's one that he would have popped up at some point anyway. He's a phenomenal player. I think sometimes it gets a little diluted just how good he was because of what he's done since he retired, and his off the field kind of almost commercial value as opposed to his value as a footballer. But it's David Beckham, and I just think that if you watched Beckham from when he broke into that United team, and especially if he was to almost get a microscope on that treble-winning season in '99, obviously he finished second in the Ballon d'Or to Rivaldo that year, which I think is absolutely criminal. This is a player who
an utter travesty.
He was involved in a team that won the Premier League, the FA Cup, and the Champions League in that season. It knocked out Barcelona in that Champions League run. They played them in the group stages and beat them. Played a key role in that FA Cup run.
And Juventus.
He had obviously that goal against Arsenal in the semi-final.
And if I'm not mistaken, Eden, was he the one to put the cross in from the corner?
Well, both of them, in fact. And then even on the last of the season,
that goal
for the Premier League title, so that for grabs, he's the one that scored the equaliser against Tottenham at Old Trafford.
Ed and Shoulders the best player in the team that year, Ed, and David, like you said, David Beckham he's the one who's not looked at in the same light as the likes of Ryan Giggs and Paul Scholes, who came through as a class of '92, and
I think that might be because he left, but
possibly, but he still achieved great things with Real Madrid, and he paved the way. I know it was a more commercial aspect of it to go to the MLS with LA Galaxy, and still came back and was instrumental for AC Milan on loan and Paris Saint-Germain.
But I just think people kind of lose sight of David Beckham and how good a player he was. Obviously, everyone knows how phenomenal he was at set pieces and putting the ball into the box. Yeah. But there was so much more to his game, I think, than that. And I think obviously
he had some strike on him as well. The ultimate dead ball specialist in terms of free kicks. The one that comes to mind is the one at Old Trafford against Greece in 2001.
To the World Cup, that last minute.
Yeah.
If you just think in that situation, if there was one player in world football who you would want on that free kick, it was David Beckham. And I just think that
player.
Somewhere down the line, possibly, and maybe even people now kids nowadays growing up, don't quite realise the quality that Beckham had. Because he gets lost a little bit behind his commercial value and some, the haircuts and stuff like that.
He's known more of a celebrity now than a Premier League footballer because it was so long ago, 17 years since he left Manchester United.
I just don't think that people should lose sight of how good a footballer David Beckham was. And his
phenomenal footballer, and it's that thing we said for a long time, because the explosion of social media and the spotlight over the past 10 years, players from the era before, the likes of Paolo Maldini, Andrei Shevchenko, people like that, even the Ronaldo, they're not looked at in the light they should be, given out the quality of player that they provided over numerous years. Just how good they were.
And it's, some of these players get a little bit lost, and the commercial side of it should never take away of how good a footballer David Beckham was.
No, but rightly so. He's in the Premier League Hall of Fame, both in my eyes and I know in yours. And my pick for this weekend is one that you might not agree with, but Michael Ballack of Chelsea.
I could see why.
One of the best box-to-box midfielders to ever play in the Premier League in my eyes.
Yeah, I think the argument against him would be just how long did he spend in the Premier League? It would be, was he around long enough to become
possibly, but
there's no doubting that if you were putting together just a Hall of Fame for footballers, he would be in it.
Yeah, but I don't see as why. I know longevity could be an aspect in terms of other players who will go into the Hall of Fame further down the line, but I don't see why you've got to play 10 years in the Premier League just to justify being acknowledged as one of the greats to have ever done it. Michael Ballack in that Chelsea team, how powerful that Chelsea team was. He set the tempo alongside Essien and Frank Lampard in that midfield, and it was always always willing to accept the ball under pressure. He'd start attacks, phenomenal range of passing on him, but also would do the dirty side of the game in terms of tackling, the aggression. Like I said, set the tempo for Jose Mourinho's Chelsea side.
Yeah, he was there from 2006 to 2010, so he had a good 4 years there. He made 105 appearances, during that time as well. So he wasn't a flash in the pan in the Premier League. It wasn't like he was two seasons. It was 4. So there's a sustained period of time there in the Premier League.
Yeah, just phenomenal central midfielder, and that archetype of a central midfielder in terms of tall, large, powerful, but also got the range of passing. You don't see that anymore in the Premier League. Everybody's very diminutive, not disputing how good these players are in the Premier League today, but it seems you've lost the type of player from a team that Michael Ballack was.
Yeah, I think certain players have got Michael Ballack's attributes, and they might have like one or two of them slightly better than him, but they haven't got all of them, if so to speak. Almost like that jack of all trades kind of thing.
Yeah. And he had an absolute hammer of a strike on him, Eden.
I can see why you put him in there, and I think he was there longer than I initially thought as well. For some reason in my head, I only had him down for 2 years, but no, I think 4 years is long enough to be considered a Premier League great.
Anyway, that seems as though it's a logical end, Eden, for this show, for this week. Yeah,
it seems like a nice stopping point. We'll do more of these, I think, especially during the fact that the winter break is currently upon us and there's less football being played. But we will endeavour to get more of these kind of podcasts out, even as the
because it's evergreen content that you don't have to listen to straight away. You can come back to it, see how wildly inaccurate we were in terms of who City will go and pursue in the summer. Yeah,
if you come back at the start of next season, you can hammer us for picking out certain players.
But no, it's been a good one, Eden. It's
I think
interesting to look at the overview of a club in terms of how the season's gone this year and how they could look to move forward in terms of rejuvenating a squad.
Yeah, I think it's been good for us as well looking into these teams. You get a slightly better idea of how they play, who across Europe plays similar style that could fit into their teams, and it'll be interesting to see who we find and come up with for other teams. And I think the next one we're doing is it Chelsea or is it Tottenham? We decided on doing
Tottenham.
We're going to do Tottenham because that could be an interesting one because they're set for a big summer under Jose Mourinho.
Jose's first summer transfer window.
Bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, the overhaul of a squad that seemed to run out of steam under Pochettino at the start of this season. It'd be a culture shock for Daniel Levy when Jose knocks on the door and is like, "Can I have 300 million because I want 6 players?"
It could be. I think the papers could be in for a field day on that one. Could be a culture shock for them as well.
But Tottenham are primed as a football club to establish themselves as a world superpower.
Yeah.
Given that the best stadium in England, best training ground in England, links with the NFL, links with high-level sports nutrition, sports scientists. So yeah, it's interesting to watch Tottenham as they grow as a football club. But just to finish off, we will have an article on MatchDayReview.com stating our predicted Manchester City starting 11 at the start of next season for the season 2021.
Yeah, and we'll do that for every club we do as well. So there'll be a podcast and an accompanying article with predicted starting 11s for you to all go and laugh at us at the start of next season when we've got it horribly wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they'll be on the website. That's matchdayreview.com. Be sure to follow us on Twitter as well. That's at matchday_review.
And leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify. 5
stars, obviously. No 1 stars, thank you.
So we can bump up the algorithm. And also look at we've just have a read, if you will, through the articles we've got on Matchday Review at the moment.
Yeah, we've got some about Bruno Fernandes and Pogba's move away from Man United as well. And there'll be more content going up there as we iron out some bugs and stuff on the website, but it should be all good to go.
And like we say, always at the end of every show, if you've got any feedback, any topics, areas of discussion you want us to look into, any comments, any questions, be sure to hammer us DMs on Twitter or send us an email at matchdayreview again, that's 2. Send us an email at the email address matchdayreviewpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and we'll endeavour to try and get some of that content into the podcast or an article as well. I think that's that for this week. It's been
a good show, Aidan. I look forward to doing the Tottenham one.
Well, it might even be the Tottenham one we do next, as opposed because of the winter break. But we'll be back next week with more. Bye bye.